Hey, in this case study, we're going to go through working with a cash-based physical therapy practice doing multiple six figures in North Carolina, how we're able to help them get a true understanding of their utilization rate, where their advertising marketing spend was actually creating a return for them, and ultimately how we're going to be able to help them continue to scale up profitably with better understanding of their finances. So let's get into the case study. Hey, I want to get into this case study of a multi-six-figure cash-based physical therapy practice in North Carolina that came to work with us at CEO Finance Academy. I want to guide you through kind of some of the changes that we were able to make with them, obviously go through the challenges they were facing, what we were able to implement with them, and then get into sort of where we're heading next with them. So this client is in North Carolina. They do cash-based physical therapy and rehab services. They work with a lot of golfers, rec athletes, runners, tennis and pickleball in that area is taking off. So a lot of the clients that they see. And so what were some of the challenges that they were facing when they came to us? So number one was unpredictable seasonality and having sort of random growth and not knowing where the growth was coming from and why it was happening the way it was. So they were doing strong local activity events, and so that would drive bursts of new patients, but they would have seasonal dips and early summer disruption, which was making planning really tough in terms of cash flow. So huge swings, huge amounts of revenue coming in, and then really slow months, and not having a plan of how do we manage the cash during that time. Two was underdefined capacity and utilization. So the team schedule and hours weren't mapped to revenue targets. So it was just sort of, hey, how many hours do you think you could hit? They would set sort of arbitrary goals of how many hours that a clinician or a therapist would want to be able to see. And it wasn't really tied to like what was the revenue target for that and what was the profitability target based on that. So that was kind of unclear. And then no visibility into their paid marketing metrics. So they were spending money on Facebook ads and Google ads and didn't really have a clear idea of what was the return on investment on that ad spend. So those are some of the problems that they were facing when they came to us. And so some of the things that we were going to help them with to be able to get a better sense of profitability. So one of the first things that we did was we helped them with the seasonality forecast and demand calendar. So we built a month-by-month forecast around known peaks. So for them, it was, fall going into winter, and then low times, which was definitely through winter, to front load marketing for those peaks and bookings during the slowdown. So being able to maximize on those, what we already knew was going to be busy times. And then, hey, how can we use some of the extra cash flow from that to push into marketing during the slow times to be able to offset that and not be as slow as it had been. So as number one. Two was capacity and utilization model. So we were able to define we define what's the clinic ceiling in terms of number of days open and patient hours that are actually available for the therapist to fulfill. And we set realistic revenue goals based on that. And then what are the hiring demands and needs going to be as we scale? So another thing that we did was we pulled the EMR scheduling reports and we're able to track utilization percentage. So meaning for an actual therapist, what was their utilization percentage that they were averaging? So if they could do 40, let's just say they had 40 1-hour slots a week and they were only using 20, right, to be 50% utilization. We were able to look at, hey, what's the average utilization rate and be able to forecast, hey, if we can get this up to 70%, 80%, what does that do in terms of revenue? What does that do in terms of profit? So that was number two. And then the third thing, what we did was we created an advertising ROI dashboard with them. And so we were able to create a workflow to be able to really look at, go into their CRM and determine, hey, what is the return on investment for both Google and Facebook ads? And one of the cool things we were able to find is up to that point in us working together, we were able to figure out that throughout the year, they'd had a 6x return on ad spend, so ROAS, on their Google ad spend, whereas Facebook had also been good, but started to dip. And so we were able to help them say, hey, you've got this acquisition machine that's working. We might want to dedicate more of our marketing spend to this channel that's actually producing a lot of the results in terms of new patients coming in. And then we did gross margin hygiene for services. So we recoded clinician payroll taxes into COGS to give us a true idea of profit margins per service line to reflect the true service margins and compare provider productivity cleanly. So we were able to look at which providers were more productive than others, which ones had a higher utilization rate, ultimately which was bringing in more revenue and profit for the clinic. And the last thing was hiring and workload scenarios. So we started to model out who does the extra work if we hit a place where there's extra demand, what happens at different revenue tiers, and when does the owner need to step in if we're going to have an overflow, or when does it make sense to be able to hire? So really looking at when can we afford to make that next hire versus just saying, hey, I feel busy, I think it might be time to hire, but actually looking at, well, what's the true utilization of our team before we go and make that hire? And one of the other things that we did here that's not mentioned is how do we start to build some reserves to be able to prepare for that new PT that's going to come in. There's going to be a period of ramp up. They're not going to have a full schedule right out of the gate. How do we, how do we account for that? Knowing that they're likely going to be on salary. We're going to have to cover that. We're going to need some reserves to do that. So building that and mapping that out was super helpful. So at the end of the day, estimated ROI, was it worth it for them? So a couple of things that were really huge here was really, as we were able to dive in and get a true understanding of utilization percentage, we were able to point out saying, hey, we're actually underutilizing certain time slots throughout the week. If we can maximize that for when they're most in demand, we can actually improve the number of patients that are going to come through, and we can potentially even charge a higher price based on the timing of that. And so even a single-digit % gains from filling some of those open slots is going to lead to multiple tens of thousands of dollars throughout the year. So that's obviously a huge win if we, as we're doing that. Smoothing out the seasonality based on going through the ad spend and being able to say, hey, we know now which channel we're able to put more into. It'll help offset some of those slow seasons, which goes into the ad spend optimization side. Really actually getting a clear understanding of the return on investment. Now we're able to put more marketing dollars into a channel that's producing 6x. And even if it goes down to 5, 4, 3, we're still at a healthy return to be able to drive that up and bring new people in the door. And then cleaner margins. So reclassifying provider payroll into COGS clarifies true margin per service and supports our compensation decisions. So to us, obviously super worthwhile and going to be paying off in terms of the multiple tens of thousands of dollars based on implementing these things. So what's next for them? So we're going to keep working with this client. And one of the things that we're going to do is a monthly utilization review. So using their EMR, % open slots, and booked out horizon to trigger marketing pushes and hiring thresholds. And then provider targets, set session hour benchmarks, incentives aligned to sustainable workloads, and to not overload the providers. The third thing that's not on here is actually building a comp plan for the new physical therapy hire that is likely going to happen here soon. So actually map that out with them, look at what we can afford, what do we need to do in terms of runway to be able to build on reserves to cover that time as this new therapist is going to be trained up and until they get to capacity and break even. So that's what we did here. This is a case study of a multi-6-figure cash-based physical therapy practice in North Carolina. If you like this kind of stuff, seeing inside of businesses, the challenges that they're facing, and sort of what we do on the financial side to help them really be able to scale profitably, just check out our YouTube videos. You know the drill. There's tons of case studies on here, and you can walk through any of them and get a good sense of kind of the work we do. And it's always fun to just see inside small businesses. So hope you enjoyed this one. We'll catch you on the next one.